There exists a YouTube channel called Manus Studio, and it produced amazing, award-winning content, like videos about the scientific rigor that went into declassifying Pluto as a planet, and I'm just kidding, it was a bot channel. But well, the music stood out, and it was all connected to one single producer, a man named Gary Miller. Of course, as you'll soon learn, Manus Studio wasn't the only bot YouTube channel with videos that had Gary Miller music in them. It's time for case file 098546, VHF Productions Songs. Investigation into this began prior to the inception of the FMM server, but I can tell you two things. We knew all these songs had music producer Gary Miller involved with them, and most were unreleased demos. We did have some contact with Gary Miller, though as far as I'm aware, we only asked him about 3 of these songs, and also, again, as far as I know, he didn't have any idea about where these samples came from. We also had 37 samples, with only 2 fully solved, and stayed that way for quite a while, with the hunt to ID these tracks starting in at least 2021, if not earlier, but interest in them really didn't start to grow until 2023. Sadly, Gary Miller would pass away in 2022, so asking him any more questions about these songs would no longer be an option. It was also late 2023 when Mel Nobody found the same samples we were looking to ID in an older YouTube channel, with the videos having the label VHF Production Music. Unfortunately, the channel had since been deleted, but we at least now had a name to associate with these botnet YouTube channels with Gary Miller music, VHF Productions. It's pointed out that re-uploads of some of these songs would lead to copyright claims by a company called Hexacorp, though it turned out they were apparently a copyright troll. In the meantime, we did start to find some vocalists associated with Gary Miller, including Angie Greyfox, whose name came from one of the only 2 of these samples that was Shazamable, and Francisca Hall, whose name showed up in some of the records from Songview, the musician's right database for both BMI and ASCAP. I've made a video about how to search that platform along with several others, and you can find a link to that video in the description below. We also talked about the song Love Therapy, or Love is the Therapy, or Liquid Love Therapy, trying to make sense of the title and lyrics. Then, we heard back from a vocalist we had found through Songview, Lorraine McIntosh, and she confirmed several songs were by her, including I Want Your Love and Right Time. And Songview would also lead to a solve for Live Your Life, after HyWhisper would hear back from a name attached to the record, Angie Brown. HyWhisper would also point out Francisca Hall again, noting several songs associated with both her and Gary. There was some discussion about a male vocalist on a few credits from Songview as well, Steve Lee. Then writer HoxtonGuess got back in touch with Angie Greyfox, and yet another sample was solved. Many suggested that other VHF production songs could be her as well, including Radio Silence and Liquid Love Therapy. User aidinic solved Every Time You Walk Away and Little Piece of Heaven after they heard back from vocalist Sybil. And remember that artist I mentioned, Steve Lee? Well, HyWhisper heard back from him and confirmed the songs If This Is Love, I Want to Be Loved by You, and Together Apart were all by him. In fact, Steve Lee would end up being really nice and incredibly helpful, because he would also identify the songs Save Me and All I'm Missing Is You as being by Lorraine McIntosh, who it turns out was Gary's girlfriend at the time of those recordings. Anyway, I want to leave this comment here for a little bit later. HyWhisper saying we were at this point at 25 out of 38. Anyway, it was pointed out that one of the songs on our list, Follow Your Star, was a song that Gary had given us information about prior to his passing, saying that it was originally intended for a Disney ride, and I mention this mainly because I'm a huge Disney Parks nerd. Anyway, HyWhisper heard back from Lorraine McIntosh confirming numerous songs, including Some of That, Just Wanna Be Free, and It Only Hurts at Night were her. I Believe in Love and It's Too Late were by Jackie Graham, and she suggested the song Sleazy Mother might be by Denise Pearson. And guess what? HyWhisper also heard back from Steve Lee, who confirmed yet an additional 2 songs, Feels Like Heaven, which was him, and How Could I Say Goodbye, which was Gareth Gates. Is at this point we found more YouTube content farms with VHF Productions music labels, leading to the Discord channel being renamed, and leading to the number of songs we were looking to ID going from 38 to 63. We then finally heard back from Angie Greyfox, who confirmed Radio Silence and Liquid Love Therapy weren't her. We also found a vocalist, Aysel Babayeva, who it turns out had sung the song Sleazy Mother, or Sleazy Mo, at Eurovision, though we weren't sure if the version we had was a demo, so this would remain unsolved. In the meantime, Seven Wonders would again bring up the song Liquid Love Therapy, wondering if it instead could be Paper Therapy. And well, Seven Wonders would notice I had access to PRS, the British Musicians' Rights Database, so I would search it and found a result for Paper Therapy with Gary Miller as a composer, and one artist listed was Stacey Flood. I'd also find a result for Radio Silence with a handful of names credited, including Gary, of course. It wasn't soon after that Seven Wonders would hear back from Stacey, who confirmed that the song we now know is Paper Therapy was by her. Then Seven Wonders would hear back from one of those names I mentioned, Greg Watts, who confirmed that Radio Silence was by Francisca Hall. aidinic also found a US copyright record for Wherever I Go associated with Francisca Hall, and we wish we could contact her since she clearly had a connection to Gary at this point in time. I also pulled all the records associated with Gary Miller from PRS, which led to getting confirmation of vocalists on both I Like the Way, vocalist Christian Fry, and Forget Me Not, vocalist Steve Lee. Wouldn't be able to call these solved, though, without artist confirmation. Then we looked into a band called Slam, that's with 2 M's, and the lead vocalist of Memory for You. Paul Berry seemed to say it was, in fact, him. But another member of the band Slam said he didn't think it was. We also heard back again from Steve Lee, where he confirmed the song My Guy was him, but Forget Me Not wasn't. He also provided some new details for several other songs, including the song we had been calling Say Goodbye was actually called New Word for Over. This led to me finding the released version of this song, with vocalist Natasha Thomas. In fact, this also matched the song view entry, so we were fairly certain that Natasha was also the one on the sample. Out of this came a lead, which I might still look into at some point in the future, a company called Traiv Productions, who seem to have a ton of possibly pirated music with weird labels, very similar to VHF Productions. Meanwhile, Funado posted a new lead for Memory of You, a vocalist called Robbie Craig, and he sounded exactly like the sample we had. Then, HyWhisper heard back from Steve Lee, who said that New Word for Over was not Natasha Thomas, but he suddenly remembered it was actually by vocalist Amanda Wilson. And yet another solve came courtesy of the US Copyright Office, with Funado solving I Will Love You Always as being by artist Asniv, A-Z-N-I-V. And you know, I will love you always. That is, as long as you like and subscribe. I really appreciate it. We also discussed a producer that worked with Gary quite a lot, Brian Rawling, and his company Metrophonic. And I can reveal this is a lead I have very recently looked into, finding a way to contact Brian directly, though I have yet to hear back from him. After finding a Reverb Nation page, Funado was also able to move both Forget Me Not and Sacrifice into pending verification, with the artist being Ethan Edwards. Reverb Nation also led to a solve for Two Steps to Heaven, Christina Sishta. We heard back from another old lead, a vocalist named Sheena, who said the song Feels Like a Lifetime was her, and we later figured out it was actually a group that she was the vocalist in, Reflective. Then we started finding Gary Miller recordings in a number of weird Russian B-movies. I swear the search is such a mess, so hang in there, this is kind of important. Meanwhile, Funado heard back from vocalist Sarah Ozell, who confirmed Point of No Return and Getting Over You were both her. Then Funado and I both heard back from Francisca Hall around the same time, and Wherever I Go was finally solved. And Funado also heard back from Ethan Edward, who confirmed 3 songs were by him: Sacrifice, Forget Me Not, and Far Away. But then it turned out that was a different Far Away. Yeah, I know. But silver lining, because soon after, Funado finally heard back from Robbie Craig, who confirmed 2 of the biggest and most popular of these songs were his: Long After the Night Is Gone and Memory of You. Anyway, remember those Russian movies I mentioned? We learned that Gary worked with a man named Vyacheslav Tyurin. Forgive my pronunciation. And I was able to utilize historical website registration data to discover that back in 2012, Vyacheslav was listed as the admin on Gary's website, before Gary would become the admin the next time these records updated. I mention this because there are some who believe that due to a rather robust piracy scene in Russia, Vyacheslav might, keyword might to my Russian friends watching, have something to do with Gary's samples leaking. Anyway, we did reach out to him, not mentioning that last bit of course, but never heard back. And because the search wasn't weird enough, several of Zero, aka Q's, uploads of these Gary Miller songs were copyright claimed by a clear troll. And I will say right here, this is plain and simply hurtful to both the community as well as the original artist. Luckily, we were able to get the troll taken care of, and if you'd be interested in copyright law and how it impacts Lostwave songs, let me know in the comments below because it's a topic that really interests me. Anyway, let's cheer things up with Funado hearing from Christian Fry and confirming the song I Like the Way. Also, somewhat out of nowhere, another song became Shazamable, and Nick Drossos was suddenly responsible for 3 of these songs, as well as an alternate version of a 4th, still unsolved song. And that's about where things stand now. We've gone from 2 out of 38 solved to 40 out of 63, and I know within a month that number 40 will be higher. Let's just hope the number 63 stays the same. Until next time, I'm PersonOfDistraction, and I'm now listening to